Hey, y'all, you're listening to the Legacy, Lyrics, and Life podcast. I'm your host, Shawna Wells, your legacy architect.
And I have the honor of spending time with you thinking about and reflecting on legacy. This is the podcast where we explore what it's like to make decisions every single day to live the legacy that you aim to leave. So I want to start this conversation with a story. I just recently had the opportunity to talk with two folks from my alma mater. I went to University of Vermont. And for those of you that don't know me, I chose to go to the University of Vermont because of a cow. When I was 10, I adopted a cow. Fast forward to high school, I'm sitting across from my guidance counselor, and she says, "What do you know about Vermont?" And I said, "I know I have a cow there that I adopted." And the recognition of Vermont, the love I had for my cow, and me not knowing the answer to the question, what's the legacy I want to leave, attracted me to think about and look at the University of Vermont. So I like to tell people I ended up at the University of Vermont because I adopted a cow and I wanted to follow it. But real talk, when I went to University of Vermont, as you can imagine, I was one of a few Black college students on campus. And it was pretty hard to find my identity and who I wanted to be. And I think I spent a lot of college wandering. I loved University of Vermont. I made friends that I will have for a lifetime, and I love them. And I had a lot of conversations with myself about who I wanted to be, the impact I wanted to make, and how I wanted to show up in the world. So now I'm 40 years young, and I get the honor and privilege of sitting next to and on the board of the University of Vermont's College of Education. So they asked me when I met with them, if you had $1 million to spend, what would you do with it? And that question gave me pause because money is access. It's data for us. It's an opportunity to open up different possibilities. Money does not solve everything, but it sure does make it a little easier. So as they asked the question, all of these possibilities flooded into my head. What came to the top was ultimately what I would do with $1 million if I were spending it on something for the world. I would spend it teaching high school juniors and seniors about legacy. And I would be talking to teachers and principals and guidance counselors about asking questions like, what's the impact you want to make with your life? And who is it that you want to be when you look back on your life 80 years from now? Those questions are much more profound than what do you want your major to be? So my hope, my intent would be to build out a different conversation that we can have with our students and our young people to ask them questions that are really rooted in the legacy that they aim and want to leave. That's what I would do. So that was my answer to the question over these great appetizers we were having. Anyway, they put me in the hot seat. They were like, great. Do you want to give money towards that? And y'all, when somebody asks you, do you want to give money, your hard-earned money towards something, then it's time for a decision. So when they turn the question back to me, okay, well, you don't have $1 million, but would you put money towards us building a new conversation for children around legacy? That gave me pause. It was almost as if I had to filter all of the things in my life and figure out, if I say this is my legacy, do I have the will to put time, energy, and resource behind it? And in this case, resource being money. And so over the period of what I would say felt like an hour, but was really a minute, I really had to come to grips with, do I really mean what I say when I say I want my legacy to be the opportunity for people to open up new dialogues and conversations around the legacy they aim to leave? Do I really want to do that? And the answer to that question is yes, I do. And now I need to figure out, how do I do it every single day? And is one of those ways to give money towards a thing? Is one of those ways to give energy towards a thing? Is one of those ways to say no to something I'm doing over here so I can say yes to doing something over on the other side of my legacy? So the thing I really want us to think about together is what you say you want in terms of your legacy. Is that actually the life that you're leading? What are the sets of decisions, of habits, of rituals, of traditions that you do every single day that can make space for your legacy to come alive? And when we're able to stop and think about what we do every single day as an accumulation of a legacy well lived, well, then that changes things, doesn't it? That changes all the small things that we do. Like, do I order this thing off of the internet, have it delivered to my house, have it have impact on the environment, and say that I want to build a sustainable future for our children? Do I do both? What tension presents itself when I do both of those things? Do I say I want to be someone who is an abolitionist, who invests in the liberation of Black and Brown people, and at work silence voices that are on the margins? Do I do those things? Because those two things are operating in tension. What I know about working alongside senior leaders is that our legacy arrives every minute. It arrives every second. It arrives every single day. And so what we need are tools that help us make decisions based on our legacy. So here are a couple of questions that when I'm working alongside my clients, I ask them to ask themselves when they're making decisions in alignment with the legacy that they want to leave. So question 1 is, what is my legacy and how does it show up here? And that can be like, you can answer that question pretty quickly, but you ask that question so that you remind yourself, what's the legacy I said I wanted? And how does what I'm about to do next relate to it? The second question I work with my clients on asking is, if I say no to this, what's the impact on my legacy? And we start with a no, because most of the time we all try to do too much. And so most of the time we start with, I have to, I should. So I push us to ask the question, if I said no, what's the impact? And sometimes different thoughts emerge, different ways of being emerge when we're faced with a no. And then the third thing is, would I be able to joyfully live my legacy if I do this thing or make this decision? And I want to emphasize and double underline that joyful piece, because again, we often get caught in the shoulds, the woulds, the coulds. And as I've lived this life, and I've lived this life alongside so many senior leaders, when we make decisions that are rooted in joy, it's just better for everybody. The grumpy dial goes down, the investment dial goes up, and we move from this state of obligation to a state of love when we can operate from real joy. But this is hard, y'all, right? Because every decision every single day accumulates to a legacy. So it's hard, right? Like, because we got to put some hard thought into the decisions that we make as we move through our lives, down to like, should I buy this t-shirt or not? As I was thinking about this, I was like, what examples do we have of people in modern day stating what their legacy is and then making decisions in alignment with their legacy? And as I was thinking, y'all know, a song pops into my head. I'm sure many of you have heard the song, If I Was President by Wyclef. He talks about all the things he would do if he were president. He says, if he was president, instead of spending billions on the war, he says, I can use that money so I can feed the poor. Throughout the song, and I'm summarizing here, he talks about how he would reroute funds, time, energy throughout the course of a week to do right by the people in the world. And actually, we see small decisions that Wyclef has made over the course of his lifetime that align to that. He's a proponent for immigrant rights. He gives back to his own Haitian community. He's big in philanthropy and spends his time, energy, and money speaking out against injustice. And yet I wonder if I sat with Wyclef, which one day we want you on the podcast, if I sat with Wyclef and I asked him, do you make decisions on the regular that are in alignment with your legacy? And by regular, I mean every second, every minute of every day. I wonder what he would say to us. So the question that remains for all of us is, what are the decisions that we have control over in alignment with our legacy? And what do we have the will to do as a result? So I'm challenging you all this week. I'm challenging myself. I'm challenging Wyclef to really think about, are we living lives that are in alignment with the thing we say we want, the legacy we say we aim to leave, the impact that we hope to make? And if the answer to that question is yes, I want to know you, I want to talk to you, we want you on the podcast because we could all learn from you. If the answer to that question is no, well, y'all, we have some work to do, because when you live your legacy and I live mine, the world becomes a more intentional and abundant place. But more likely, your answer to the question is sometimes. I know that's true for me. And so what I want to do is honor that sometimes and ask you, if 10% of your decisions were made in alignment with your legacy, how might that change the world you're working to create? How might that reinforce the legacy you're aiming to leave? And how might that make way for other people to do the same? Thanks for joining us today. I hope we gave you some things to think about. And I'm looking forward to hearing how the way you make decisions is impacted by the 3 questions I asked you to think about earlier. Set an intention and go out and build a habit around your legacy. We'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us.